Hello, this is Kelvin Andrews from Soul Mechanic, Sheer is Pure, DJ and producer and other things, and you are listening to the Liverpool Connection podcast, music and football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. This is my music and football and more episode where I bring on a DJ, producer or musician to talk about the two loves, which are music and football. Lately, I haven't been talking about football just because the guest really isn't into football, but obviously music. But today's guest is definitely into his music and is definitely into football. And what makes it even better is he's a Red. He's a DJ, a producer, and songwriter. He's been in Sure is Pure, Soul Mechanic. It is Kelvin Andrews. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm sure you're having such a good week after Isaac signed for Liverpool. A bit disappointed that we couldn't get Gahey signed. That's down to Palace. But, rating our transfer window, I'd say it's a 10 out of 10.
You'd never expect, the fact that we're feeling disappointed that Gahey hasn't made it across the line, and you think, flipping it, we've had like 6 or 7 like really brand new signings, haven't we? Of an upgrade, you know what I mean? And looking forward. And we spent that money because we won the league, and we didn't spend money last year. So I'm just like watching it all go, wow. And the Isaac was the cherry on the top in terms of attacking. I did think we need some cover at the back with Gahey, but we could talk about this forever, couldn't we?
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those, obviously there's, FSG in, there's FSG outers, that whole brigade that just want to whinge most of the time. The club haven't spent I think after 2019, after we won the Champions League, I think everyone thought we would kick on from there and we would spend. And we really didn't. We brought in a few players, but we won the league. But I mean, this is the most ever spent in the Premier League in a one transfer window. How's your thoughts on, obviously Jota passing away was massive. It's affecting not just the team but the fans as well. Losing Diaz, but Diaz wanted to leave. You don't really want to keep players that don't want to be at Liverpool. As the door, thank you for winning trophies. But I feel like we've brought in younger players that are going to stay at least for the next 3 to 4, 5 years, and that's what we're building.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Diaz going. Because I would love to have kept him because he was flying and he's flying already for Bayern, isn't he? It's amazing to see. But I think his mind was made up well before, winning the league, wasn't it? He was moving on, I think. I think he'd said, this is my period at Liverpool over. And he knew Bayern wanted him and off he goes,
Yeah, it's just one of those, again, I thought Edwards and Hughes got the most for him. I mean, he's Diaz isn't a young man anymore. Nunes, I think his time with Liverpool was up. I love his effort. I really do. I like the lad, but he was bought as a goal scorer and he just wasn't scoring goals. The easy goals, he just wasn't getting them in. It's sad. I think it's sad when a young player like him goes to Saudi Arabia League, where there's maybe a couple of thousand people watching. I thought maybe a European team would kind of come in for him. I mean, Napoli, I think, were coming in for him, but the money just wasn't there. I mean, all the best to him, but I mean, I look at our front line now. It's going to be Gakpo, Ekatike, Isaac and Mo. That's insane.
Yeah.
You know, and then you've got young Rio and Chiesa, who's got a new lease of life, hopefully. But yeah, I just saw Chiesa was not included in the Champions League squad today.
Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of bizarre, but yeah, I just I'm looking forward to the season as I'm sure you are. I think it'll take Vert a few games to get going, but
Yeah.
uh, it's a new league, it's a new team, a whole different city, living wise. I just think everything will come together, but I mean, it all looks rosy on my end.
Yeah. I mean, no one expected to win the league last year, did they? Not at the beginning of the league. I mean, no punter gave us a chance. And to be sitting here after going to Blackburn and Bolton away on a Tuesday with in the Roy Hodgson years, in the rain and seeing us lose, and then to be here now is as good as I remember it, really. And I go back fair way, and it feels amazing to be a Liverpool supporter again.
So, Kelvin, I know before, you were starting to tell me about why you're a Red, but can you take us back?
Yeah, I was kind of interested in football, kicking a ball around, hearing about football. But one Saturday in the summertime, my nan was babysitting. She lived just over the road from my mum and dad's house. So I'd just like nip over the road, and she'd plonk me in front of the TV, or she'd make me a marmalade sandwich or something like that. But this time I sat down in front of the TV, and it was the 1971 FA Cup final. So that would make me 6 or 7, I think coming up to 7. And I got into watching it. It was exciting, but I didn't like Charlie George for some reason. So I decided to support the other team. So that's how I got into supporting them, really. No other reason than I didn't like Charlie George. But the next day at school, when the subject of football came up, someone said, "What team do you support?" And I went, "Liverpool," as you do when you're that age, And I stuck with it. Then in '74, we were in the final again, and we won it. And that was like, right, I'm so Liverpool. By '77, which seems like such a long time looking back from '74 to '77. '77, I was obsessed right up to that point, and then we won the European Cup, and that was everything. I was just getting into clothes and music in a big way, and Liverpool, following Liverpool and being champions of Europe was part of that. We kind of ran along together. We even named a track on the Soul Mechanic album. It's 27th of the 5th, 81, and that's the date that we won the European Cup in Paris. The actual album is about time travel. So we said, where would we go if we had a time machine? And that was one of the places we'd go. That final. So there's a secret reference on one of our records.
Well, who was your childhood football hero?
Say again, sorry.
Who was your childhood footballing hero?
Initially, it was Kevin Keegan, but then Dalglish arrived, and I was just like, this was it. I just couldn't believe he looked like he was a magician, whereas Keegan was all energy and kind of bustle. Kenny was doing stuff with the ball, and my dad used to point things out to me and say, "Look at the way he's shielding the ball there, and look at that turn," And so for me, just discovering the magic of football, and Kenny was a magician, and I was completely obsessed with him. So much so that I brainwashed little brother Danny as well. Middle brother Richard didn't really bother, but Danny was prime. I was like, "You're supporting Liverpool," so I used to tease him with Danny. Go like, "What?" And I go, Dalglish's ace, and he'd go, "Oh, shut up," just and it would continue. Now he's as obsessed as and then my boy's as obsessed as all of us,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was definitely Kenny. The first person I noticed was Alec Lindsay, because he had blonde hair and I was a blondie, so it was just like I kind of related to him. Then I discovered a bit more. It was Keegan and then Dalglish, and that Kenny was my man.
Yeah, for me, my first match was 1976 when I was 6, and
Okay.
Keegan just stood out to me. As you know, Keegan left in 77 for Hamburg, and I was absolutely distraught. Because
Same. Yeah.
for that whole year, I was just like Keegan this, Keegan that, and as you know, when you're a kid, when somebody leaves, you just feel like your whole world is crumbled, and then
Yeah.
my granddad was like, "Stop it," somebody, because he's been to so many games. He's seen players come and go. He was like, there will be another player that will come in and will shine. And I was like, no way. There's nobody's going to be better than Keegan. And lo and behold, King Kenny. And within like 2 months, I'm like, all right, Keegan, who?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just Kenny. It's just not on, you know, on the pitch. It's off the pitch.
Yeah.
That's how to be a professional footballer is
Yeah.
to be, not driving around in a fancy car like they do all now. He was so down to earth, and
Yeah.
just as a footballer, just doing the stuff he did on the pitch, just
Yeah.
amazed me. It was just the golden era for Liverpool, wasn't it? Like the
Yeah.
early 70s and 80s. Obviously the dark days of kind of like 89, 90.
Mm.
But we've always done really well. I mean, you brought up the Roy Hodgson days, which were just absolutely awful. I mean, the wrong manager, the wrong players. He just got it all wrong. And the Souness era wasn't very good
Mm.
either. I just thought
No.
he let a few players go that probably should have stayed, and his tactics just wasn't working.
He
But
started to change things, didn't he? Soonest he started to change the boot room situation, and do it his way,
yeah,
and it didn't click, did it? And I think Roy Hodgson is clearly a decent coach, decent manager, but the expectation at Liverpool is massive. It doesn't matter whether we haven't won the league for 30 years. The expectation is there. Every year it's the same, isn't it? Every season,
yeah,
so and that's to go with that weight, no matter what. I mean, he was like, oh, well, he managed England, but this is Liverpool. It's a different thing altogether.
yeah, and just the players that were brought in, Konchesky and just Joe Cole. It just that they weren't
Yeah.
Liverpool players. They just
No.
weren't. And
No.
I think we were all very frustrated, and I mean, especially with Hicks and Gillette, the
Yeah.
two cowboys that just pretty much ruined Liverpool
Yeah.
and almost put us in administration. There was just a lot of bad juju going around at that time. Just because the football we played was terrible. I remember so many arguments in the stands.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a good time. But we're we're, we're back on our perch, as they say. And
Yeah.
I know football's a little bit like fashion. It comes around every now and again. United had their time.
Mm.
Man City hopefully have had their time and they're done. It's our time, I think. I think that's why we've done really well in the transfer window, is to get a team, a squad together for the next 5 years to compete.
Mm.
You know,
And
um,
these players that are coming to the club are looking at Liverpool, going, "I fancy that."
yeah,
You know, and I think Klopp's got a lot to do with that.
yeah,
He turned us into a much more attractive prospect than we had been for decades. And I think just to see this constant "there's only Liverpool for me" quote from players who come in the season. That's a new one by me.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
in this day and age of, you know, the biggest checkbook wins. You know what I mean? Because there's no way no one was looking at Isaac apart from us. I mean, we were the only ones who were saying we're looking at, but who else was looking at him?
Yeah. Well,
And he was going, "No, I'm going to Liverpool."
yeah. Well, I mean, you see all these pictures. Isaac was in was wearing a Liverpool shirt when he was young.
Yeah.
So, it's nice to see that, that we have pull again, because for a while we didn't.
No.
And like you said, I think Klopp changed that. They like the football that we play. And I think, the city's grown as well, and it's a great place to live. It's a wonderful time to be a Red. I mean, I'm sure you were a bit devastated, just like everyone else, when Klopp, that January said, "I've had enough," and you could tell, like, the months before, he looked knackered.
Yeah.
I actually thought he had something wrong with his health, because he just
Yeah.
didn't look right, But that January, I got the ping on the phone. It's 6 hour difference, so I got it a bit later. I thought it was a joke. I was like, no, Klopp's not leaving, no chance, And I really got emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. It was a hard one to take, but on reflection, I looked at it and he did need to stop. Even for someone like him, the weight was too big, the expectation was massive, and it was consuming him, and you could tell. So what basically he did say, didn't he? I'm the idea is I'm going to leave it in as best place as possible for the next. So it's a continuation, understanding all the legendary talk about how, during our earlier golden period, it was a continuation, a dynasty, wasn't it? Not many people I know could watch Liverpool when Shankly was around, but I caught the end of it, and I sensed that kind of when Bob Paisley took over. It was so seamless. In fact, it just went into overdrive, didn't it? Just like it has done with Slot, which is the comparisons are obvious, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, you had Shankly, who was very vocal. Klopp was very vocal. And then Paisley was Mr. Quiet Man. Slot is kind of that as well. So, hey, if Slot can have half of what Paisley,
that will do me.
Yeah, well, that'll do me, because, Bob was just amazing for the football team. But I never, ever in my wildest dreams thought the transition would go that smoothly with Slot.
No.
And like you said, nobody had us winning the league.
No. I mean, not even people on the Kop.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, you've got to be a realist. I mean, you go from Klopp to Slot. I didn't know anything about Slot. I really didn't. And I had to look him up and see, what he did in the Dutch league. And, obviously Liverpool waited at least a month to do the first presser. And I'm actually glad they waited, because, the whole Klopp, like, goodbye was up and up and up, and we needed some space in between.
Yeah.
To just be like, say our goodbyes to Klopp, and then Slot.
Knowing it was coming, it really helped, didn't it? And it was it was a big gang of us were watching the game against Spurs in a pub in Chorlton, of all places, where it's normally full of Man City fans, and it was like full of Liverpool fans. It was me, my lad, and a ton of us there, and it was just like this is like a magical time. It was ridiculous. I got goosebumps just looking at the screen, going, I mean, God knows what it was like there, It was amazing, an amazing day, to come back and win number 20 and now being considered for 21, which is the one really, isn't it? Because we can edge ahead of that lot. We are laughing, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, well, they can't sing, we've won it 20 times anymore. So, I've seen United fans even stoop low and be like, well, you've only won 2 Premier Leagues.
Oh, God.
I'm like, wow, football did not start in 1995. I'm sorry to tell you. Yeah, they'll throw anything out, won't they? But I'm just happy where we're at again. We're playing really attractive football. We've got a squad that can compete, and we've got world-class players again.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there wasn't an international break. I
Yeah.
really do, so we could just get on with it.
It's so annoying, the international break, isn't it? I get this sinking feeling like, oh God, what am I going to do at the weekends?
Well, I mean, especially when England, plays like people like Andorra or Macedonia. I'm no disrespect to them, but I mean, come on. And then some of your lads come back injured. That's all I want. I want all the lads to come back healthy.
Yeah.
And it's just football these days, though. Kelvin, is they're treated like racehorses. Flog them until you can't flog them anymore. So many games getting stuffed in the year. That whole like the World Club Championship that was played over here, I'm glad we weren't in it.
Yeah, going back to Klopp, he flagged it up many times, didn't he? And I think Slot has as well, less so, but Klopp was like very verbal about the amount of games. And I think if there was ever a call for a player strike, it's that subject, because the players have got the power, really. They without the players, you're knackered, aren't you? You know what I mean? They could literally go, right, we want the games reducing because we're struggling with our careers. I mean, obviously, when you're getting £200,000 a week, it's not really struggling, is it? But in terms of the well-being of players and the health of them, it is worth striking about, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we're coming to a point, I think, where you need 2 11s to basically play all these matches.
Yeah.
It's just getting insane. I mean, quite a few years ago, I kind of fell out of love with football just because of the greed. It just didn't make me want to really watch the games as much. Just because, I mean, it's the same with music though as well. The music execs are the ones that make the money, and the actual artist does make sod all. Barely can live. And it's the same with FIFA and UEFA. They're going around in their nice big shiny cars. They have the mansions. While us, the paying public, the price is going up.
And struggling to pay for tickets and take the kids to the game.
But lockdown really showed me, football without fans is absolutely shite. So but they don't care. The higher ups, the prawn cocktail eaters, don't care.
No.
You see it in the finals now. It's a 80,000 stadium, right? And 20,000 tickets for Liverpool, say 20,000 for Spurs, and then 40,000 for sponsors.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you look at half time and the game's kicked off in the second half, and all the centre seats are empty because they're still drinking. They're not even bothered about the football. They're just swanning round on a free ticket.
Yeah. Well, the more to say that they were there. That's basically all it is to take pictures at the game, eat their caviar, drink the champagne, and go, I was at the Champions League final. Okay. There you go on social media. Yeah, it needs to change. Will it? Probably not. It'll probably get worse. But what do you expect out of this season then?
Well, I'd like us to obviously qualify for Champions League, and that would be like the base bonus, you know. But I'm excited about us challenging, you know, for the league. There's lots of people going, "Oh, Liverpool have won it." I don't believe that. I think there's too many good teams, you know. But I think we're capable of doing it again. There's obviously a lot. There's a bit of a change because of Jota. That situation. There's an emotional weight that comes with playing at the moment. I think we've gone past a period where we've got going and played the first 3 games, and this break's come along, and I mean, yeah, it's going to get less painful, more pragmatic, but will it drive it on? I think, you know, doing it for Diogo, it sounds like it might be something that they would want to G themselves up with. You know what I mean? That emotion that's coming from the crowd, and you know, maybe that will fuel us on, because it's been emotionally exhausting, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we as fans, you know, it's very sad what happened, but I can't imagine being like his mate, his teammate, that
Yeah,
you look over and that locker, he's not there anymore, you know.
yeah,
People again think of these players are like superhuman beings, but they have feelings. Robbo and Salah, you saw that they broke down, you know,
yeah,
and that's what they're having to go through, which I commend them, because it's really tough. I mean, you know, we've all lost somebody special, you know, in a family member, but I can't imagine, you know, having not seeing your best mate next to you in a red shirt.
yeah. And the emotion from the crowd adding to that as well. That whole thing about the community and the whole um, that it'll all have an effect. I think it's been handled magnificently um, by the club, and but I wouldn't expect anything less, really, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's been and it'll always be forever sad, but it's also life, isn't it? That how precious is it? You know, you see that happening. Doesn't matter how rich you are, you know, or how successful or how happy you are. You know, you don't know whether tomorrow's going to be your number.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I think you know, hats off to the club, the way they've dealt with it, and you know, I just think, you know, obviously nobody wins the league in September or October. You know, I think if we need a little push in, say, February, March, I think the Diego thing will push these lads on. I really do. And
yeah,
yeah, I just, you know, I just hope for a good season. You know, a trophy or two, hopefully Champions League and Premier League. I'm not asking for much, you know.
just the Champions League and the Premier League. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not much, is it? You know, I mean, if somebody else can have the League Cup, that's why we gave it
yeah,
Newcastle last year.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but
You have that. I mean, I'd like, you know, my European, my love for the European nights makes me want to think, if we don't win the league, the Champions League is the one. We're, you know, just be spectacular, wouldn't it? That's a successful season. Even
yeah,
if we finish second or third, that's a successful season.
mm,
But you know, we want to win every game. That's what, you know, that we want to win every game, and we want to win every trophy. That's the bottom
yeah.
line. You
I
know,
mean, everyone starts at the beginning of the season. You know,
yeah,
that's your four main things: the League Cup, FA Cup, League,
yeah,
Champions League. You know, that's what you want to win. I mean,
yeah,
it's so funny when like opposing fans go, "Ah, you didn't win the quad again," blah blah blah. But I mean, every team wants. I would hope wants to win the quad.
yeah,
I mean, twice we've gone so far in nearly doing it, you know,
mm,
and I think that's a feat in itself. But it's one of those. I just laugh at other fans, because I'm like, it is hard to win the quad because nobody's won it. That's why,
Oh, yeah.
we've been close twice. So, I expect us to kind of be up there again. I think we'll do better in the League Cup and FA Cup. I think slot all, because we didn't do very well in the FA Cup.
Mm.
Plymouth, we put out a team that should have beaten Plymouth quite
Yeah.
easily, but it happens. That's the magic of the FA Cup, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of like the magic of Grimsby Town beating Man United in the League Cup. That was brilliant.
Yes. Yeah. I enjoyed that, I've got to say.
Yeah, so did I. I've got one or two Man United mates who didn't talk to me for a while, and I've got a few Newcastle mates that left me some nasty voice messages after Isak did actually sign for us because they just think he wasn't going, they were keeping him, and I was like, nah, he's a red, so you get used to it. So they're not happy with me and left me some nasty messages, but I'm sure we'll still be mates in a few weeks. But
In a few years.
yeah, maybe give it a few years. But I have a feeling, I actually have a feeling we're going to meet Newcastle in one of the cups,
Yeah.
and the storm will happen all over again. Hopefully, it's at Anfield. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just glad the Newcastle games, the away one is over with.
Yeah. The
It's
impression I'm getting is that Newcastle screwed up there
yeah.
because if they didn't want him to leave, they would have made sure
Mm-hmm.
that they tied him up. You know what I mean? It just won them their first trophy in 74 years, is it?
Yeah.
And that's the man. Make sure, give him the contract he wants.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if he said he was going to go, and don't say he wasn't. It's almost as if like, yeah. I try not to pass too much judgment on opposing sides because we're all the same, really, supporting
Yeah.
the thing we love.
Yeah,
But
the thing is, though, Kelvin, is my Newcastle mates were having a go at us about Isak and then him down in tools, but then Wissa from Brentford down tools because
yeah,
Newcastle wanted him. So what's
yeah,
the difference? But they were like, oh no,
yeah.
there's a difference. I'm like, well, tell me what the difference is.
There isn't a difference. It's
No,
exactly the same. It just
yeah,
didn't suit their narrative.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't mind banter. When it's good banter back and forth. When you start this, like especially feed the Scouse or bollocks, or you bring
yeah.
Hillsborough, that's crossing a line. I don't like that tribalism in football.
Nor me. No,
Uh,
I don't like it either way. I've been to Old Trafford and there's been Munich songs and I don't like it. And
yeah,
most Liverpool fans I know do not like it. It's there's always a few who will spoil that,
yeah.
in any club.
Well, they get called out, and I know
Yeah,
Liverpool. I think it was like 2 or 3 seasons ago. There was one lad doing the Munich chant, and he got called out by other Liverpool supporters. That there's no room in football for that crap.
no,
I
no.
can't stand it. If you know banter, it's tongue in cheek. You know,
Yeah,
you say sing a song to them, they sing songs
yeah,
back. But it just seems United just can't get rid of the feed the Scouser rubbish, or the
yeah,
murderers. Like
yeah,
it's grown men, like in their 60s, and they're usually
yeah,
old and fat for some
yeah,
reason, you know. But they should be mature enough to be like, all right, leave it alone. And then the problem is these 15, 16-year-old kids are looking up to those men and
mm,
singing the songs, not knowing really what it's all about.
no,
That's the problem. They need to go, all right, stop singing this.
yeah.
You can
It's not acceptable. Not
no,
in this, and certainly it wasn't in any age, but certainly not in this day and age.
yeah,
It's not acceptable at all.
sing about yourselves. Like
Where's it?
that's why I like the Palace fans.
That's another thing where the reason that adhered me to Liverpool when I was younger was the humour. And the
Yeah,
humour was really apparent in the songs and just things I heard when I was around Liverpool supporters and the trainers and God knows what. It was a lot. There was a lot going on to take in. You know what I mean? It was very specific, but the humour was key. That's should be at the center of all the piss taking.
Mm-hmm.
It should be humor, not nothing untoward or bad taste. To me, it's just like it's like they haven't got a brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, no, they don't have brains. You know,
No.
that's the thing. I do want to talk music with you. You know, I can't bring you on and just talk about football. Um, what are your musical roots and early influences? Like, did your mum and dad have any influence on like your musical taste early on?
Most definitely. My dad was a professional musician in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. He had a few records out. Didn't really have any major success, but he had a career in the music industry. He was Sandy Shaw's band leader in the mid 60s. And so he was like, we kind of grew up with music around us. He managed a few bands after he stopped recording. So for us, Saturday mornings, we'd wake up with our bowl of cereal and whatever was on the telly, and there was loads of hairy men lying around from bands. You know, that was the 70s for us. We used to see it all the time. And my dad played guitar and showed us a little bit about guitar. And, you know, it was never forced. As soon as we started showing an interest in it being a career, my dad would say, don't go into the music industry, because he goes, it's not nice, it's not a nice world, you know. But there's three brothers, and all three brothers ignored him completely, and we all ended up in music. So, bizarrely enough, today is the 25th anniversary of my dad's passing. Today is, which is strange talking about him.
Oh,
Think about that. Today was like 3rd of September to 2000. So it's like it's 2020. Is it 2026 now? 25. 25.
Yeah, still got another 6 months or 4 months.
Yeah. So it's 25 years today. You know. Yeah. So, but yeah, most definitely, he had also had a record collection, because when he finished being a performer and a recording artist, he went into tour management. He worked with a company called Danny O'Donovan Enterprises. I remember that very clearly because I was very impressed by what my dad did, you know. And this company brought the black artists over from America, mostly to do tours in the UK. So I mean, as a 10-year-old in Hanley, in Stoke, I witnessed Rufus and Shaka Khan have a sound check, you know, in the afternoon. I had no idea who they were. I was more interested in the Pong machine that they had in there. That was the thing back then, 1975. So I was the year before, my dad was involved with a soul festival at Wrexham, at Wrexham Football Club of all places. And I think Greg Wilson was there. It was Greg's first ever like show, go out, and he was with his mate Derek Kay. Do you know Greg and Derek?
I know Greg, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he posted recently this photograph of him and Derek Kay, and they were on the way to the Wrexham Soul Festival. I was a little bit younger, so music was everywhere, and it was a real mix as well. I was talking to somebody the other day about records in my dad's collection, and there was like French Celtic folk with a guy called Alan Stivell. There was Kraftwerk. I mean, the Autobahn album completely blew my mind. I was like, the way it looked, and I had no idea, but it so strange and alien, you know, it was amazing. Ray Charles, Frank Sinatra, some funk and soul. It was all not a massive collection, but an influential one.
Yeah, I think in a lot of houses in the 70s, you know, the whole sound system,
Yeah.
turntables, and then you had either the 8-track in there or you had the cassette, you know.
Yeah.
The whole household seemed to kind of congregate around it, especially on the weekends. I remember my dad buying this, like, it looked like a flying saucer, with turntables and all that, and I was just so enamored by what was coming out of it. My mum was more soul, Beatles, Elvis, a lot of the black artists from America, and my dad was the rock, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, um, and Rainbow, and yeah, it was just a whole mix. And then my sister, who's a little bit older, in the like 80s, it was more Depeche Mode, New Order. So I had a little triangle of like all these different kinds of music, and it was just great. I mean, again, how some people will go these days, they'll just go, I like soul music, I like house music, I like heavy metal. If it moves me and
That's yeah.
emotionally and reaches inside my soul, then I don't care what genre it is.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, and the quirkier the better in terms of the spectrum of it all. Just find little corners of, and I think DJing for me is certainly about just sharing. That's the kick I get, to play something people haven't heard and go, "What is this?" And kind of playing something and knowing that this is pretty good and they haven't heard it before, and that feeling of playing that and seeing their reaction, because when it comes off, it's quite gratifying because you've discovered that and introduced it to them. That simple equation, that's the thing that still excites me.
Well, the crate digging,
Yeah.
where you go to a record shop and you spend hours and hours and hours, and the seller would look at you like, "Are you going to buy a record?" You're like, "Well, I haven't found the right one yet," and he's like, "You've been here 4 hours," but that was the whole deal, and I miss those days. Obviously now digitally, Beatport, track source, wherever you buy it, it's so soulless because all you do is click, click,
Yeah.
click. And as we all know, back in the day, record shopping wasn't just about buying records, it was about meeting people, of
Yeah.
like-minded, and I miss those days, not to harp on and sound like, an old fart, but it just brought the joy of hearing something in a club. Monday morning, you'd be at the record shop, soon as it opens, going, "I heard this in the club," and it went, "Da-da, da-da, da-da." And the seller would either go, "Man, you're bonkers.
Yeah.
Are you still on something? Because I have no idea what you're talking about." Or they do know what you're talking about because they're on the same level as you, and they'd be like, "Here it is."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that excitement of bringing, vinyl home.
Yeah.
The smell of vinyl to me, I've always said, like, I love the smell of brand new vinyl.
Yeah.
Something about it that it's the whole artwork as well. That's
Yeah.
what goes in it. And then again, when you're buying something on Beatport, you're just downloading it. You're not downloading any art, nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm one that I used to read the album cover from back to front. Every last
Yeah.
word that was on it, I would read it and I would appreciate what went into making the album, not just
Mhm.
not just the music.
Yeah, and discovering names in the credits and going and just imagining who those people were.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and as a 16-year-old in '81, first seeing the name Francois Kevorkian on the label, I thought, who's that? Who's Francois Kevorkian? Who's Larry Levan? I had no idea. They were, and I have since discovered who these people were, but they would pop up these names. You nowadays that looking in the credits pays off because there's little pathways to help you find your way around.
Mm-hmm.
With the digital thing, there's a lot less so, isn't there? It's just a track and a track name, and that's what you get. Luckily, there's some great music around, and that helps us to stick with the digital. So it's kind of worth it. But I think there's something special about a record, isn't there? And sleeve notes and credits and second track on the B-side, that kind of thing,
Yeah, well, those are the hidden gems, aren't they?
Yeah.
you know, when you find the B-side and you're like, I like this better than, you know, what I wanted it for. You know,
Yeah,
the A
yeah,
side's great, but yeah, it's these B sides and just obscure. Like, I mean, that's why I love Bandcamp.
yeah, yeah,
Like, I go down the rabbit hole, and you
yeah.
know, I'll see remixed by so and then produced by so and then I'll click on that, and then I'll find, you know, another rabbit hole to go down. And you know, I wish I could go to a record shop here and kind of, you know,
Mhm.
spend 6 hours of, you know, being told hurry up.
Yeah.
You know, but for you, for DJing then, like when did you like start taking it seriously?
Um, just going dancing, that period I mentioned before, 1981, that was key. Um, in Stoke, we have got a decent DJ culture, which you were often made aware of, because Colin Curtis is a Stoke lad,
Mhm.
and so everyone knew about Colin and his exploits and playing all over the country, and you know, and being a name you associated with dance music during the sort of the end of the northern thing that I picked up on, but certainly the jazz, funk, soul, then electro, boogie, that kind of world which came before house music. That was the incubation period for me. There's a DJ called Trevor M, who used to play at the teenager night in Hanley at a club called The Place, and we used to go there on a Wednesday or a Thursday. I think it was a Wednesday, and it was under 18s. But Trevor would still play the music he played on a Saturday night to the kids. So we were getting this education every week, and the obsession was increasing. It was like cassettes were like a currency in the playground. You know, you'd and everyone would copy a cassette, and it would kind of just expand from there. But sometime around the end of '81, I was like, I was like, oh, I'm doing a paper round and washing cars. So I had a bit of money in my pocket, and the first thing I would do was try and buy one of these records that I'd heard in the basement where Trevor was playing. So my first, I used to play friends' parties and stuff, or bring my records along and play just on one deck in the corner, which I loved. But then I'd be like watching Trevor do his thing, and so in the summer of '82, I got offered a gig, and that was the first paid gig I ever did. So I was 17, and DJing wasn't hip then. I'd go looking for work at something. I get there and they say, "Here are your records." I go, "No, I've got my records." They went, "No, here are your records," and you'd have to play the records that they're laying out in front of you. So I learned fast. I realized if I wanted to DJ with the music I liked, I'd have to put my own parties on, or my own nights, as it were. Then, and so I did with varying success. And then it kind of went from there. I was surrounded by it. I've got two brothers who were really into it as well. Danny was obsessed with it. The youngest brother, he was like following his big brother. So, you know, by the time like house music appeared in '86 or whatever, '85, '86, we were already on this journey of up tempo, sometimes electronic dance music. You know what I mean? And then house happened. It was like, oh, it's like a continuation. It wasn't like a cut-off point. It was a continuation. So I think that sort of '82 to '86, I think that was an interesting time because DJing wasn't hip. It wasn't cool. And then it became cool. In the UK anyway. You know, certainly in Stoke.
Well, I mean, Golden, you know, if you think of clubs in Stoke, Golden is probably the club, I would suspect.
Yeah, certainly caught the wave of the clubbing explosion. On the site of the Void, or the Academy as it was before, where Golden was for most of its time. I mean, I was there for from 92 to about 97, 91 to 97. And it's now a car park, but there's a blue plaque up where Golden stood at the void. So that's kind of says something 30 odd years on, doesn't it, really?
There's a lot of plaques going up. I mean, you know, Hacienda is, you know, a block of flats, and, you know, all you see is the plaque, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. I mean, you know, I grew up with Nation in Liverpool, and that's a, you know, just office building now. I think, you know, it's just things change, you know. But for you, like, obviously, you know, when you're DJing, to get out more, obviously the next step is production. To get your name out there. When did you start actually, you know, thinking, all right, I can do this? You know, because I mean, the next step is, you know, technology has gotten a lot better, obviously now, you know, and a lot of people, you just need Ableton or Pro Tools. What was your first setup?
Well, it was a bit of a roundabout way because I was DJing, but in the meantime, Danny, my little brother, had been brainwashed into finding this world, and he left school and found a course in Manchester, which was sound engineering. He went and did a sound engineering course at Spirit Sound in Manchester. I was in a couple of, I don't know, halfway point bands where I'd learn how to arrange and write songs and stuff like that. Find my way around, making a few noises on some instruments, nothing spectacular. And Danny basically got obsessed with drum machines and synths. And so he was in '88. He produced a record by This Ain't Chicago called Ride the Rhythm, which ended up being quite a big, sizable club hit, particularly that he did an acid mix. And it was quite early on for the UK to be doing like acid house with a 303 and a 909. And he made this version. And I think it just scraped the charts. It wasn't far outside the charts. So Danny was like, come in the studio with me. And I was like, okay. So I would then start getting involved with music with this genius programmer by my side who was also my little brother. So it was kind of like, oh, okay. And I learned on my feet, you know, you have to. You get an opportunity and you go for it, don't you? You know, this was like, no, there was no plan. No, I don't believe anyone had a plan for a career in dance music back in 1988. But some people did have one. And I found myself amongst it, really. And, once that started, I was always in the studio. I just and it went from there. I think we had some decent early success, and that gave us a chance to like remix some amazing stuff, which back then was you'd get a multi-track, or later on you'd have all the parts on a DAT, but you'd have a multi-track at first, and it would get sent up to you, and you would plunder this multi-track to make a new version of it. And that was probably the most educational period, because early on we were managed by DMC, and they were doing these disco mix albums, and we blagged away onto that somehow. And in fact, I was writing reviews for Mixmag Update, and I think we'd had a I think we put something out on my own label, and they picked up on it, and they said that, I said, well, you should give us a go at doing a remix for you guys. And they go, well, what do you want to do? I said, we'll do anything. And it was literally like that, you know, you just find your way in. And so they suggested we did a remix of Bucks Fizz just as a joke. so we did it. That was our first ever remix, The Land of Make Believe, and it was a Sure Is Pure version of that. Looking back, maybe not the best idea, but that was the way in, you know. And then I think shortly after that we got Marvin Gaye and Sly Stone, so that was well worth it. You know what I mean? So listening to a multi-track of Sly Stone's Family Affair and hearing how that was made, how that was put together, was like properly going to school again. You know what I mean? You know, we learned a hell of a lot. And to be fair, I think we rose to the occasion. We pulled it off because I think it was just blind faith and also willing to learn and try things. And you know, and I must say, Danny's training as a sound engineer gave us that sparkle in the studio. It was we could program and play and do it, but to have that extra production sparkle that makes your record stand out, he brought that along. So immediately people were noticing our records and our remixes. So it was a good combo.
Well, it's always good, you know, I think to have that engineer who knows exactly how to bring the sound out, you know.
Yeah.
Again, I'll harp back onto like Beatport. So many people can make music these days in the bedrooms, but they don't know how to master it, and they don't have an engineer to make sure it all sounds good. And you know, I call it throwaway music because it just, once you you know, put it on a big sound system, you hear whether it's been produced well or not.
Yeah.
So I guess with Danny, that's a massive plus.
Yeah, it was the thing that got us noticed, really. Looking back, I mean, at the time, you just like, wow, yeah, of course we'll just carry on. But looking back and listening to some of those early records, they stood out because he had that little bit of inside information on the desk and how to use compression and how to make a mix sparkle. All the things you're looking for when you're producing any kind of music, isn't it? You know, something it's going to go, oh wow, what's going on here? You know. So yeah, it was. That's the first thing I would say to anybody setting out with music: get to know a good engineer.
Yeah, because, I would say that as well.
Yeah, because otherwise you're doing demos. You know.
Yeah, over and over again. So
yeah.
Do you think like your early success really, really helped you? I mean, obviously, you know, financially back then, I would say you'd make a bit more money than you do now. But do you think that early success, because you know, everything that you kind of was putting out back then was getting charted.
Yeah. Yeah, it was living the dream, really, you know. And before long, we'd get a phone call, like 2 or 3 phone calls a week from the majors, throwing money at us, going, you know, Lulu's got a new single. Will you do a mix for us? You know, and when someone's waving $7,000 at you in 1992, you like, okay. And looking back, I think I would have said no to a chunk of these records, these remixes. On reflection, I would have liked to have said no and done more of our own stuff rather than give all our ideas away to the remixes, you know, because it ended up, most of it not being our catalog, it was someone else's catalog because it was a remix. So, but you know, that, you know, when you're young and you know, getting paid well, no one can blame you, really, can they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had this kind of same conversation with King Unique.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was telling me they were getting thrown so much money at them to do just, you know, pop. And they were just taking it and taking it and taking it. And then he said the same thing, you know, if he was asked to do it today, he would say, no, you know, enough's enough, you know, like you can't polish a turd.
No.
Basically, you know. So
we got quite good at polishing turds. That's why we used to get other work. He used to give us and we used to use one sample of something, and just because it was Sure Is Pure, it would end up on the record. You know what I mean? People would just, they were like, we need a dance mix. Those guys do a good, and that was just a bit like that, you know. So we made a name for ourselves, but maybe we would have done it differently looking back.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, do you think Soul Mechanic is like the anti Sure Is Pure?
I suppose in a way, I thought because like anything, we Sure Is Pure had gone out of fashion at the end of the 90s. We'd had a one last hit with the Blue Boy, which was like went top 10 in 97, and then beyond that we couldn't get arrested even though we'd had a hit. You know, it was a bit like that. Well, and so it was a case of, right, okay, let's make some music, follow our heart with this, a little bit more underground, a little bit more experimental, a little bit more using contemporary, you know, not being stuck where we were, but still having that root of disco and funk, which we've always, this part of what, you know, what we, is part of our sound, you know, what we're into still. But we I think we first of all, we said we did a press release saying that we were from Luxembourg, and we were so no one would know it was us. We were like, right, we're really into the idea of being anonymous here, you know, and then it kind of took off, which was surprised us, particularly in America, which was like we got and made a name for ourselves in the States. So we were our records were doing well in the States, and you know that doesn't hurt you, you know. But yeah, I think you're probably right. It was a reaction against, you know, what Sure Is Pure had become. Although now it seems like it's back in fashion again. I don't know. It's bizarre. We have people approach us and go, "Would you do as a Sure Is Pure remix?" And we're like, "Really?" It's like, you know, 25 years ago or something. Yeah.
You go, how much? You know, that's the thing. You got to make your money these days, however you can. But you know, Soul Mechanic to me, just, I mean, you had it all. You had, you know, the acid house kind of old sound to it, but it had electro, it had disco, bit of balearic, like it's a mishmash
Yeah.
of sounds. And it, you know, when you first came out, I did the same. I thought you lads were from Luxembourg because that's what was put out, you know, especially like Three Beat, you know, they were, I heard, you know, yeah, brand new by Soul Mechanic, these lads Luxembourg, but you know, blah blah blah. You got to get into him, you know, and yeah, no, it was just refreshing because I think dance music got a little stale. It got a little like you know, formulated for me. You know,
Yeah.
I love my prog house, but then prog house was starting to sound the same. There wasn't adding anything to it. House music was house music. It was just, you know, especially the popular stuff. The Soul Mechanic to me just grabbed me. It was something different. And like I said, I grew up on hip hop and electro. So
Yeah.
with that sound and with soul, again, I was like, I'm having it. And, you know, every track was always different. And again, that's what I like. I don't like, you know, like bands or DJs that are pigeonholed.
Yeah, and it
And
becomes one sound, and they
yeah,
don't. Yeah, I think the essence of, even today, as a DJ, if you hear me play in a house gig, it's going to be all over the shop, even though it's all house, maybe, or a certain tempo or whatever. It definitely moves around in style. That's definitely what I'm into. You know, the DJs that I look up to and always have always moved it around and made it. I think DJing is about creating moments that people remember, and a lot of house and techno is quite forgettable, isn't it? It just, you hear it, you nod your head, and then it's gone. You're not rushing out to buy it. You're not doing anything. So for me, it's like an underground sound, but the idea that you want people to go, "What is this?" They want to know what it is. You know, it's about that to me. You know, and I think if anything, today I've refined what was happening from, being 14 up to now. It's the same thing. It's a definitely a line you could draw through it and go, okay. And there'd be little points of musical influence along the way, but it's still the same thing, from when I was a kid, thanks to my dad's music and, and all that. So,
I mean, I wanted to discuss, the album, 1981. Well,
81, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was so underrated. I mean, it just, for me, it's a complete album. And back then, for a dance artist to put out an album, a lot of them have a few hits on there, and then there'd be fillers. I didn't feel that there was any fillers in that album.
Yeah, well, that's a nice thing to say again. We tried to make an album. We were making tracks, and the people at Rip Records, friends of ours who had a label, they said, well, would you do an album? And we were like, okay, but we didn't like the idea of it just being a set of tracks. We were like, okay, let's bring the idea of the concepts album back. Like, we were like, okay, because we wanted something. If we're going to do vocals, you want something to sing about. You just don't want, that was the whole idea. Whether it was right or wrong, I don't know. But so we said, okay. Danny came back with this story from Cyprus, and he'd met this guy called Jafar, and this guy Jafar had said that. They told him that he was Iraqi, and he said the reason why the Americans had entered the war with Iraq, it was nothing to do with the weapons of mass destruction. It's because they had technology that the Americans were after, and they had some kind of like future technology that the Americans. And Danny told me the story, and I was like, "This is brilliant!" The idea that the Americans invaded Iraq for a time machine that the Iraqis had made. And for some reason, I drafted myself into the story, and we both met this Jafar in the idea. And this guy said, here's the keys, I'm off, basically. And the idea was we had the keys to this time machine. And the idea was where we're going to go. So we went to 81, which is where a lot of it was born for us. The beginnings of what we do now was. So we went to 81, and then we kind of visited various places, and there's like a little adventure, a thread through the songs. There's the lyrics are saying something along those lines, not specifics, but relative. There's like little hints of what it might be if somebody explained to. It's like, for example, "Never Touch That Switch" is the emergency eject in the time machine. If everything's going wrong, there's a switch. If you press it, then all hell breaks loose, but it might be your way out. And that's what "Never Touch That Switch" was. There was a song called "Go Upstairs," and "Go Upstairs" was when they played the soul music, and it kind of went a bit mushy, what we called it. It was like a slowdown, and we'd go upstairs because the place was a multi-room venue. We'd go upstairs and watch the Weirdos, and that was what in the song it says, "Excuse me while I go upstairs and watch the Weirdos." That's the lyric, and it was referring back to going back to being 16 again and having a time machine, So we needed. It wasn't for anyone else. It was more for us to be inspired by. So we had a subject matter to sing and write about. Because at the end of the day, you're making tracks for sound systems. It's not. It's to writing a song is another world altogether. So to make sure those things work, you have to have kind of something there. I think that's helped us to write the stuff. So yeah. But I'm very pleased to hear nice things being said about that record, because I've made a few albums, and I can't listen to them after they're completed mostly for a good few months. I can't really. It's like everything. It's like you've got to let it go. But it drive you insane. And the point of finishing it, I don't know. Revisiting them, I revisited that album, and I was like, oh, I'm actually quite proud of this, you know. But it didn't come until a couple of years after we made it, you know.
Do you like go back though and go, ah, I could have done that better? Or I mean, because I always like to know, producers, are you a perfectionist? Like, do you have to have like, you know, do you ever go back and go, I could have done that better than?
Of course, yeah. There's many things where, particularly the music that we'd made. I mean, back in the Sure as Pure remix days, a bike would turn up to collect a DAT. There was no, you couldn't email it to anybody. A guy turned up and you gave him the DAT, and often he was waiting outside the studio on his bike while we ran the DAT off. We'd work through the night and we would just run it off. I mean, God knows what state your ears are at like 9 o'clock in the morning after going through the night. It can get psychedelic on the hearing front, I think. But we did okay. We had a good run, you know, by using that method.
So how's the? I mean, obviously, you know, you're about to go in the studio again. Are you planning on more Soul Mechanic releases?
All I will say is it's looking promising at the moment. Yeah. So maybe it won't be Soul Mechanic, but it will be us. So, but I don't know yet. But I'll make sure you know when it happens.
Yeah, I would, you know, whatever name you put out as, I know it's going to be good. So, I mean,
you'll be surprised what other stuff that we like. I'm working. This studio session was with my middle brother Rich today, and he and another guy, Scott and myself, worked together on this stuff. And it's Rich is more of a classic songwriter, arranger type thing. Scott's a multi-instrumentalist, mostly in the brass arena as well, plays trombone and trumpet and stuff like that. And we've our last project, I'll tell you a quick recap. It must be 12 years ago now. And a girl artist called Lana Del Rey is looking for songwriters to work with and stuff just before she breaks through. And on her tour of songwriters, she came to our studio. Rich and Scott have got a studio down the corridor, and Danny and I are the studio at the other end of the corridor. And she was working with Rich and Scott at the time. Danny and I were doing more electronic at the time, and Rich and Scott were writing pop with her. And this song, one of the songs called Dangerous Girl, and that was that ended up being shelved, disappearing for until about 2 years ago. I got a phone call. The burlesque artist Dita Von Teese wanted to use it in her show in the West End that she's currently doing, called Diamonds and Dust. And and then they asked, have you got anything else? So we wrote a couple more. And so we've got 3 songs in this West End show at the moment. So talk about, you know, extremes and stuff. I'm involved with that project. It's not really my project. They pulled me in to help them with it, which is amazing because, you know, you've got to earn your money in this game. You've got to work, you know, you can't really rely on anything anymore. You just got to keep at it, you know. So that's, yeah, that's, I've forgotten the question you asked me now. I've gone off on that story about the West End thing.
Oh, just about, you know, songwriting, just you know, how you get into it. I mean, I want to quickly ask, because Lana Del Rey is a Red as well. Did you
Yes, I know. Yeah,
did you help
yeah.
her? That?
No, I had nothing to do with that, and I didn't discover it until much later. But yeah, she was in it because she stayed at my brother's house as well, you know. But it was before she was a star, you know, and she was quite a character. She had a bit of a mini breakdown outside the studio, tears of the lot, and just her and I, and she's like, oh. It was all I was like, this is interesting, you know. And then you look back, and I was, you know, you try and be nice to people and talk them around. I thought she was great. She was very ambitious. She was very, very super ambitious. But all these things, you know, just like working on different projects. It's all music. It's all, you know. This is the stuff that we're doing for this thing is more like burlesque, like stripper music. It's like, but it's still great. You know, it's still something you go, that's all right. You know, it's not dance music. It's not club music. But my spectrum of taste is really broad. You know, it goes from like strange dubby techno to ABBA. You know, and I like it all and everything in between. And I've certainly got for my DJing is that I lean towards the underground much more than I do the obvious. But at the same time, I'm not adverse to playing a pop song as a surprise, you know, like something that people remember. So, you know, I'm not one or the other. I think the songwriting thing is something we were made aware of when we were kids because my dad could write, and then that's kind of grown with meeting different people and working in the pop world, having some success in the dance world, which then gets you noticed to work with people in the pop world. And you know, there's a long story. It's a 30 odd year of making records and having the DJing running by the side of it, concurrently doing its own thing as well, sometimes not even connected.
Well, it's crazy to think, you know, I mean, you've known Robbie Williams for a very long time. You've worked with him, written songs with him. And obviously he's a Stoke boy as well. How did that friendship start?
Well, the Rich, who I've just been talking about, who I'm working with tonight, he had a band, like a 12-piece funk band called Max and Sax. And Robbie used to come to the gigs, but he was 15. And I think one gig, he was friendly with all, because I used to go occasionally. They used to get me to come and DJ for their gigs sometimes. But so Rich knew Robbie. And he said, one week he said, I'm going for an audition for this boy band. And we're like, oh, great. Yeah, good luck. Because he was just a young lad, you know. It's like, and then next thing he comes on the telly, he's in this band, you know. That's what it felt like. It was just like, all of a sudden he was there. But weirdly, when he left Take That, I got a phone call. And obviously it was just like tabloid city. It was on the front cover of newspapers every blue week, you know. I got a phone call and it's like, hey, Kelvin, it's Rob. You know, why don't you, can you come round to my mum's? Because he was at his mum's at Betley, beautiful house with a lake, you know what I mean? It's like he'd bought. And can you come round? Because Take That, when he left Take That was massive. It was like, he cracked it, you know, and then he got booted out. And so he started he said, I've got some songs, and he'd been writing demos and doing songs. And for some reason, he wanted my opinion to see what I thought. So I went round and he played me. And I was like, he was working with a guy called Danny Saber. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, I've heard the name before.
Yeah. He was sort of connected to the Mondays and people like that, you know. And he'd done a few tracks, and I was like, this is really good. And he had a good sense of lyrics and how to make an idea work with lyrics, and he had rhythm, and it had a natural ability. and he'd never been a writer in Take That. It was always Gary. Gary was the guy who did all the songwriting. So that was a surprise, but and we sort of stayed in touch. He came. We had a project called Sound 5, which he got involved with, which was more like a live band meets a studio project. And he used to come and hang out with us. And I remember being there, and he was like trying to stay away from the tabloids. So he'd come and escape. We had a studio on a farm, and it's like no one would knew where we were. So he used to come and like jam with us and hang out. And then a few months passed by, and I got another phone call saying, do you and Danny want to come down to and work with me and Guy? He says, it's not quite working out. So I was like, and we were skint at the time. It was just like, yeah, we'll do that. So off we went. We went to Edwin Collins' studio, which had an amazing old desk, like a real vintage rotary faders, the whole, was a mixing desk. And Paul Cook from the Sex Pistols, who was a mate of Edwin Collins, he made us tea. We were just like, this is like another world. This is, and we ended up writing a few songs with him, one of which was Rock DJ. And we basically kind of went, he'd heard us playing with an idea, and he said, what about that? And we were like, yeah, okay. And we just kind of passed the idea over. That was really I helped with the lyrics, but it was mostly Rob, and it was mostly Guy. But they had to credit us because we brought the idea along, but then Guy Chambers called me and said they couldn't credit Danny because too many names were on the. It was a bit of an ego thing, I think, and we ended up not speaking to each other because he sent me a letter saying don't contact me again because his management had told him to stay away from him because we were trying to rip him off, which we weren't, So 5 years goes by, and there's been we've had a number one, which we had nothing, which we had not much to do with, apart from it was our original idea. And we've been nominated for an Ivor Novello Award, but we hadn't spoken to Robbie because he'd stopped speaking to us. And then I got a phone call from my mum. I was on the cop, and I got a phone call from my mum and said, this girl called Josie's just rang me. Rob wants your email. So I gave my mum, passed me email on. And the next day, I got an email from him saying, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Why don't you come to LA and we'll do some songs? And if not, we'll just be mates. It was really, like, okay. So that happened, and we've been solid friends ever since then. It's and we go back till he was 15, really. So
maybe a little mismanagement from his.
Yeah, it's the first time I've really talked about it openly, but that's because he's changed that person we were talking about is no longer with him. But that's the business. People have got their own agenda, haven't they? Yeah. And I think these days, Rob has surrounded himself with a decent crowd, which tends to happen if you, over the years, you get people around you who you can really trust. And I think he's got an amazing team that manage whatever he is. He's a national treasure these days, isn't he?
Well, you got to get the leeches off you. That's the thing. It's people who look at you and go, "What can I get from this person?" And I'm glad to see him doing really well. He looks healthy. Off the booze and the drugs, and he looks like he's the family now, which is great to see.
Yeah.
Family changes people. I think in a good way, because you start to be less selfish, and because you have a family. But yeah, that's great to hear. You know,
Bear with me a sec, mate. Hang on. You can see me now. I was getting in the dark. I was disappearing in the.
yeah, I mean, I can count on my one hand how many good mates I have. You know, I
Yeah,
surround myself with good people, and
yeah,
you know, I can't imagine being in the music biz these days and just being surrounded by. I mean, you see it all the time. You know, Hollywood. You see all these galas and everything, and you're just surrounded by all these so many people.
yeah,
Even the DJ thing just I can't stand it. Like when you have like hundreds of people behind you and they're not really there for you. They're there again, you know, taking the pictures and
yeah,
that it's just soulless. It's just, you know, look at me kind of thing. I mean,
yeah,
you know as well as I do, like back in the day, the DJ booth was stuck in a corner where you
yeah,
could barely see the DJ, and it was what came out the speakers is what
yeah,
matters the most. I don't care what you look like, you know,
yeah,
if you can make me dance, if you can make me have that moment, then you've done your job, and that's what a DJ's job is to do. You know?
yeah. And the this age of being this figure godhead in the middle of it all, it's not really the essence of it, is it? You know, I mean, everyone loves their ego strokes. You know, I mean, it doesn't. That's the nature of human beings. But you know, mostly you're playing other people's records. You know, and
Yeah.
that this don't get too big headed about it. You know?
Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, exactly. Playing somebody else's record, unless you know you're a certain DJ that just plays their own productions. You know,
Mm,
there are people out there that do that. You know, but most DJs play other people's music. So,
mm.
but yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, Kelvin. Like an absolute pleasure.
Nice one, man.
You know, again, I bring all the guests that I've brought on have been a part of my musical, you know, landscape, my musical journey, and you know, you're, I think, my 81st guest, and
Oh wow.
you know, it's just one of those where you know I started this podcast about a year ago, because I was looking for something different. You know, I have a Liverpool uh podcast as well, just footy, nothing
Yeah,
but football, but I just needed something else, you know, to keep me going. And music and football is a massive part of my life, so you know, uh, it just seemed to fit really well. And
it crosses over as well, doesn't it? Like man, like I mean, you said your last guest wasn't really into football,
yeah,
but when sometimes I think music and football they're very different passions, but you can get just as passionate about both of them. You know.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I used to go to the football match, and then I'd go to Cream,
Yeah,
you know, the same night. So
yeah,
I had the best of both worlds, and then the
yeah.
next day wake up with a massive hangover. Those days are gone, thank God. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on. You can find Kelvin on Beatport, Spotify, you know, every musical outlet you can that's out there. Um, any DJ gigs coming up for you?
um, that's a good question. I've got my diary in front of me. I'll be able to tell you. Let's have a look. um, where are we? Yeah, September is a I'm doing a book talk with my old mate Justin Robertson in
Ah,
20th of
fantastic. He, he's
yeah,
he's so brilliant. Such a smart man, but like, you know, I mean, an art and not just a musician, an artist, a writer, you know, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I've had Justin on before, and it's probably one of my favorite episodes.
yeah. He's a great guy, and we go back a long way. but he's got this new book out, and he's promoting it. So we said the people who I work with locally, Newcastle under Lyme, we said we did a book talk with Bill and Frank for last night at DJ Saved My Life. That was the first thing we did, which I hosted, and then I did a back-to-back with Bill, Frank, and myself, and then we're doing a book talk. He's doing a reading, some signings, and then me and Justin are playing back-to-back to the end as well. So that's on July the 20th. And then I'm off to Carcassonne for the first time as a bit of a break. My friends, for my 60th birthday, are all taking me to Carcassonne for the Convenanza thing. And so I'm going to go do that at the end of September. And then October's Ibiza. So I'm going to go over there and do a couple of gigs in Ibiza.
Nice.
One at Pikes and one somewhere else I'm not sure of. But the summer just gone has been one of the best, one of the craziest. Playing everywhere, left, right, and centre. Playing with my lad Joey. We DJ together quite a bit now, so the family things continued. He's saying my lad. He's 33 now, so he's no longer a lad, but he is.
Yeah. You always look at your kids and think they're still that baby.
Yeah.
Well, it's again, it's been an absolute honor to have you on, mate. Again, as I always leave you, search out new music, but also search out older music. There's 25, 30-year-old tracks that still sound so fresh, and the production is amazing. And as, again, we live in a crazy world, please take care of one another. Tell your family and your mates that you love them, and, just stay safe. Until next time, take care, and we will see you later.